our cameras are giving out. They hated the game that much. This is the Not So Clean Hits post-game show, and we got some group therapy tonight, guys. I think we need to talk about it. We got to get it all out. We got Trent coming in live from Sacramento, where the Sharks win.
Yeah.
Did the nearest hockey team to you win?
Cares? I don't know. The Sacramento Kings are playing down the street right now. Yeah, I can see out of my window illuminated the Capitol of California, the Capitol building, ironically, right?
Yeah,
so not the Washington Capitals, but it's looming. Yeah. It's mocking me through the. Actually, you can see this little. You see that little white flash there?
Yeah,
that's the little edge of the Capitol building right there. Yeah,
very cool.
Mocking me. Right, after my team loses to the Capitals, I'm faced with the Capitol building just staring at me. You know what? I might storm it tomorrow. I might just storm that. Sorry.
Well, San Jose is tied 3-3 with Detroit. But yeah, the Capitals have done a number. They're going to keep you up all night. Both the hockey team and the lights shining from the actual capital of California. All Seinfeld and Kramer with the neon sign. The Capitals, the hockey team, are definitely going to keep me up all night because I haven't felt that type of loss. And gosh, I mean, there's some bad losses during the rebuilding, the true tear down rebuild years, but this feels a little different. And there's been some bad losses this season already for the Utah Hockey Club. Losses. Yeah, this was not that. I don't like when the team gets pushed around and bullied like the way they did. The Tom Wilson just beating the ever-loving shit out of Krause on the ice was not fun. The exchange they had between the boxes was great, but something tells me that Wilson may have gotten the upper hand on that on top of it. I don't know what
he definitely had the scorecard decision and the tilt with McBain too. I would say you got to give the edge to Wilson in that little tilt as well. I think that was more of a balance issue than McBain being dropped, but it's Wilson wins on points on that for sure. Yeah.
Well, there is one bright aspect of the game. Utah is still really damn good at the face-off dot. 54% win.
Okay.
I mean, when you're up against Dylan Strome, who's never excelled at face-offs, and then McMichael, who won the night product. I pulled a Jakey, if you catch my drift.
Did you pull a hamstring there? Did you pull a hamstring on that stretch?
Yeah.
Damn. Jeez. Seriously stretching for some silver linings there. Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, face-offs were not one of your three keys to the game, Brad.
No, they weren't. Yeah. And let me pull up those three keys because I don't believe any of them were hit outside of, you know what? I take that back. The Utah Hockey Club actually did one of the three keys of the game on the Twitter pretty well, and that was to limit the penalties. Cannot let Ovi get into his office. Only 3 penalties taken, and of course the Capitals successfully scored on one of those, so they were at 33%. Much better than the past 10 or so games. I think about 3 times better than what the Utah Hockey Club is doing on the power play over the past 10 games. But Ovi didn't even need the office and his first goal because that was a 5-on-5 goal, and then he did score the lone power play goal for the team. Unfortunately, and I guess this should have been one of the keys too, was not only do we not need to take penalties, we need to score on the ones given to us, and that may have been what really sunk the ship. 0 for 7, 0% on the power play. Had a nice 30-second 2-man advantage that they couldn't do anything on. It looked miserable. The power play looked awful. pretty much all night. Apparently the cat is out of the bag, and if you want to just rush whoever has the puck, the Utah player will not know what to do with it. They will not know how to create more space. They will not know how to cycle the puck around between their other options. They will not look for a lane to just get the puck out of the targeted area, and they will scramble and make a flub. And that was kind of the name of the game for the Washington Capitals penalty kill, because as soon as we made a pass to whoever was open, whoever was closest to that zone would just go and just pressure whoever had the puck on the power play, and just made them absolutely incapable of doing anything good with it. It was bad. And we're going to.
There's supposed to be a downside to a aggressive PK.
Yes.
Right. There's a risk to being that aggressive in your penalty killing. Right. If you can just get the puck behind the killer, then suddenly you've got numbers and positioning. And Utah's just been unable to do that. Right. So there's a reason why not every penalty kill is that aggressive. It's because you can get exposed in so doing if the power play is capable of doing so. And this power play hasn't really been capable of much. It's interesting. The guy who's running the power play from a coaching perspective, and I'm not sure it's really a coaching problem. It's hard to identify, but Blaine Forsyth was brought in off season before last, when Corey Stillman unfortunately had to step away from the team for personal issues. And Forsyth had a lot of success running power plays for the Washington Capitals, ironically. And I remember the criticism at the time was like, okay, what does it take to really run the Capitals PP? Yeah, is Forsyth the PP coach, or is it Ovi? Get the puck to 8, right? Is that really
who sits in the exact same spot the entire time and plays on both power play units? Yeah.
Right. But in Forsyth's defense, on a team that drafted 6th overall, I think they had the 15th ranked PP last season. So a little bit above average, kind of middle of the pack for a poor team. This year, of course, they were heading into the game tonight with the 25th ranked PP. And then after going 0 for 7, I'm sure it's probably more like the 28th or 29th now. That NHL.com hadn't updated that when I looked it up, but I imagine they dropped a couple of spots. So what happened, right? I mean, they lost Jersey, but they got Sergachev, who they didn't have last year.
So that's the whole thing. It's not that Jersey was quarterbacking the top power play unit. So if anything, maybe the second unit should be not as productive, and you're losing a little bit of points there, here and there from that. But I don't know. That top unit is essentially what was crafted to start the season off with. Outside of Hayton being moved now, which I think was a bad decision,
right? There's a couple of things that I noticed from usage tonight, right? So one thing is, Bugstad had no PP time. Cooley had very little relatively. Everybody had some tonight because there was so much power play time, but Cooley was behind Kerfoot and Hayton. Kesselring was behind Valimaki, and Mavlam had none, right? So is there internally some personnel changes that we can switch things up to find a spark? Is it necessarily coaching? Is it necessarily the players we have, or just the players we're utilizing?
Yeah, and this is a great comment by DDN Dexter. The need to switch it up a little bit, or I'm assuming they mean they need to switch it up a little bit. It always starts with Gunner on the right, then cycles to the left, just standing and waiting on the one-timer, which that is the Capital specialty, with Ovi sitting on the left circle at all points. So maybe it is a little bit of all too familiar territory for the power play coach. But I actually thought tonight there were a lot of times where all three forwards were often moving up and trying to put more pressure and trying to move a little bit more. And at times it didn't work because there would be a missed pass. There would be an intercepted pass. The players that were moving up and trying to put more pressure on the net, it just wasn't in sync. And it just feels a little bit just like they're stuck and they need to get things rolling. They need a little puck luck, which I do want to mention they haven't had much of lately. But it does look like they're a little bit lost of trying to figure out exactly what to do. And I do want to bring this up. Over the last 10 games, I think you said the Utah Hockey Club's power play was 25th worst. Now it is 27th worst over the last 10 games, only hitting at a 13.6% rate. Only St. Louis, Philadelphia, San Jose, Boston, and Calgary, who is dead last, are worse in that 10-game stretch.
It's not good. And we're, as a result of that and some other factors, but largely the power play, the team is now sub NHL 500. So
yes,
this is a big issue, right? So I think last week we had a "Sky is not falling" episode, and then we followed it up with a big win. We were a little bit over NHL 500 and kind of along expectations, but I think at this point, dropping below that magic number of 82-point pace, which isn't even really that impressive. We would hope for more from this group than 82 points.
Yes,
but now they're below an 82-point pace. And the season isn't just barely starting here by any means. November is halfway through. We all know the statistic about American Thanksgiving, and 75% of teams in a playoff spot on that day do end up making the playoffs. So this team is starting to dig itself a bit of a hole. There are quite a few areas that are lacking of late. There are quite a few individual players who are not living up to expectations either in this early season. And it definitely feels like we're reaching a point where something's got to give. There has to be some kind of a change or a spark. And I'm just not sure what it is. If anyone in the chat knows what needs to happen, please let us know, because I'm at a bit of a loss. Do you have any theories, Brad?
Yeah, and Preston brings up a great point, and this is one that I was going to bring up. Need better net front game. Schmaltz being in the bumper position is useless, is another thing Preston said. I think that net front presence is really, really lacking right now, and I don't understand why Hayton had all these smart sticks early in and all these just beautiful deflections, and it looked like he was going to be making a career for being this, and I don't know what happened. Did he get hit too many times?
Yeah.
Does he have too many bruises on the back of his thighs because the goalie's smacking him or the defender's smacking him because he's standing there? But he needs to park his ass back in front of it and just start to do the dirty work there. I will say I don't love the idea that there's potentially a loss of confidence in him because he is such a young kid. It felt like he really kind of exploded at the beginning of the season, and this was something that we brought up in some of the articles we've written on cleannesshockey.com. This is stuff that we've been bringing up in the offseason and some of the podcasts we've done, that Hayton coming out and having a fast start was going to be critical, and he came out with the fast start, and as soon as he cooled down a little bit, it's almost like he got punished. And I haven't seen bad play from him necessarily. I've seen the offense dry up a smidge, but again, he's a young center. He's a player that realistically, I think all of us would be happy if he hits 50 points regardless. And
oh yeah,
I don't think there was really any reason to demote him. It just seems like there is a little bit of grasping at straws to just mix the lines up and hope that stuff works. But at some point here, there is a depletion of puck luck. And going back to Schmaltz, the man hasn't scored yet. I mean, at what point here can we just say that
it's beautiful look?
Yeah.
He passed right up on it. I mean, man, he double clutched it and then passed it across the slot through traffic to a guy who wasn't even open when he was staring at an empty, gaping.
No, I know.
So I don't know what's going on there. That feels like the yips. He had a glorious opportunity opportunity, and he just thought, you know what, I'm going to make the world's most difficult pass instead of just throwing this sucker right into that empty net. So that was tough to watch. It's puzzling to see Bugstad was 0 power play minutes tonight. I think when I looked at the box score, I saw
but
0
there is
PP
a point
minutes
where
for Bugstad tonight, which is puzzling.
Yeah, and speaking of the net front presence, so Paul commented in the chat, Bugstad is the only one capable of working the net front. Everyone except the coaches can see it. Again, I kind of agree. I think Hayton absolutely can. I mean, he scored about 3 to 4 goals that way early into the season, so it's definitely there. I don't think Kerfoot's the answer though. And I felt like Kerfoot being placed on the top power play unit was partially just to reward him. Yep. And I felt like it was partially to reward him for such solid play a couple weeks ago. But a couple weeks ago, Bugstad was just coming back too. So I feel like there was, in my impression was Kerfoot got to play that top power play unit because they were slowly bringing Bugstad back into the swing of things. And lo and behold, he's still there, and it makes me wonder why. I mean, I'm a little lost for words at kind of witnessing what went down. Another game where they score first, which I would need to look up the actual NHL stat if anybody in the chat can figure it out. I think it's something like the team who scores first in the NHL generally wins like 60% of the time. And this is just yet another game where we come out hot. It looks great. And then it just starts to collapse. And I don't.
Well,
I'm going to make the argument that go ahead.
Sorry, that I think Bugstad not playing the net front is one thing. Seeing Schmaltz there is puzzling. Hayton seems to be given a backseat, but there is one guy who really had a big role there in front of the net in the last couple of seasons, who had 7 power play goals last season, mostly from that spot, and 6 power play goals the season before, and has been missing not really only on the power play, but just generally missing all around in the offensive zone anyway, and that's Lawson Krause, who was integral to making the power play click last season, at least in spurts, particularly early last season. Krause played a big role there, and he's getting PP minutes, but they're looking largely like his even strength minutes, where there's just not a whole lot of offensive contribution. So I think that's a glaring issue too that's standing in the way of success.
Yeah, and you don't have to play center to be the net front presence, and Krause has a wicked wrister, and he's got a hell of a shot, and I feel like he's the type of guy who's a big enough body that can evolve into being that net front presence or expand on that role. And it seems like this year, for some reason, he either he doesn't want to do that or the coaching decisions don't want to do that. Another thing that I was going to bring up right before you brought up that point, and our friend Car Wash Channel is also slamming their head against the wall about it too. The decision for Ingram to start, I thought, was really strange, because Vejmelka had 2 phenomenal games. That the collapse against Vegas wasn't on him. Obviously, the Carolina game was, I mean, one of the best goaltender performances for this franchise that I've seen since that Mike Smith game against Columbus, where Boyd Gordon had 5 block shots in the gonads and other areas, and Mike Smith had like 50 saves or something in a shutout. But I thought that was a real strange move. It felt like we were really building up one goaltender's confidence and then just kind of pulled the rug again. And this isn't a team where we have a clear.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if
Starter
if he was tired or.
I don't know, because it's been it's been since Friday, so he had 2 full days off. So with Car Wash's channel's comment, in case you're not on YouTube, we need to make Carl Vajmelka the permanent start goalie and play defense and stop goal. He is the better goalie. Yes and no, because again, I don't think we have a clear starter, but a lot of these teams that kind of have a 1A, 1B kind of go back and forth between those types of goalies, and it's kind of riding the hot hand. And I did feel like this time was one of those spots where it was clear who that should have been, but we just didn't capitalize on it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's one questionable decision from the coaching staff. I think you've seen some others here as it relates to power play personnel and usage. And then I think just generally the record of the team at this point is disappointing, not up to expectations. It's a young team, and Bill Armstrong has preached patience. He's preached development over time. He set expectations very clearly before the season that he didn't consider this a shoe-in playoff team, that he considered this a young team that's going to look really good some nights and look really young other nights. He really did a good job of managing those expectations for fans up front. But that only goes so far. He certainly did not set an expectation that this would be a below 500 team, or that this would be a team poised to pick in the top 10 of the draft again. That's definitely not the expectation. As much as he didn't want to set the bar too high, I'm certain that this is not an acceptable level of performance for the team in his eyes either. I would be very, very surprised if he was a happy man tonight with where the team stands currently as far as the season goes as a whole. It's a young season, but it's not that young anymore. We're approaching Thanksgiving, and you want to be closer to in the fight than the team is at this point, for sure, despite the injuries.
Agreed. Yeah, and again, I think there's a little bit of just bad bounces, bad luck going on. Again, this was a team with 6 20 goal scorers, 7 if you count Gunther's projection of how many goals he had compared to the amount of games he played. We are clearly seeing some regression here, but at the same time, it feels like it's all happening at once. So is this going to be a situation where things bounce back? They kind of return to the means here, and we start to see that offense start to get going again. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have, a really hot month or 2, month and a half in the near future here, especially offensively, where we start to make a little bit of ground again. But I guess when you start to balance it out, I think we're still a developing team. It's still a young team, and a lot of these types of mistakes you saw. I mean, the Maverick Lamoureux pass that led right to a goal was one of those young mistakes that is just bound to happen, and it's a young team, so those types of things are going to happen. But when you compound it with an offense that is just kind of struggling right now, there's just no swagger with their team. There's just no confidence, and there's not much to build on. And, you get Tom Wilson pounding your associate captain on top of the ice, and it's totally deflating and demoralizing. And it reminds me of Corey Perry screaming at Louis Domingue's face several seasons ago that essentially broke a player. And I kind of think that's where we are at right now. And
yeah, it was a rough outing for sure. And I think to your point too, like there's a lack of puck luck, and there's very streaky players on this team that are
Agreed.
unfortunately just players, and that's Lawson Krause and Nick Schmaltz.
Yeah.
So are we going to scoring buckets of goals, catching up to the mean, to their typical scoring rate here? Potentially. That would be certainly the kind of spark the team would need, I think. I don't know what else there is in Tucson. Josh Doan provided a spark at the end of last season. Igor Sokolov has always been super dangerous on the power play. He's down there scoring in that league. Is that somebody that you bring up just in a specialist role just to see what he can do with the man advantage? And if he can be that, but we're already deep in a situation where, Michael Carcone's not playing very much.
Yep.
Is a new 12th best forward on the team.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of questions right now. Hopefully, maybe going on the road is going to be something that helps to fix it. Maybe we need to get out of the homes, go buddy up, go be road dogs a little bit. The scary thing is Boston's been so bad, Pittsburgh's been so bad, and those are two teams they're going to be playing. They kind of feel like trap games, like that San Jose game, but those to me feel like this is maybe a kind of must-win spot. But I don't know. I think this was a nice little group therapy session with the Not So Clean Hits post-game show. I don't know what else to say. I'm worried about the goaltending at this point. Specialty teams needs to get better. I don't know if this is just all the arrows are pointing down at the same time, or if we have much worse problems than that. I think let's see how these next couple games go. Maybe they kind of start to pull themselves out of the ditch a little bit here. Maybe start to build on some wins because, man, it would feel great to get a string a couple wins together. But I think that's all I really want to comment about. I did not like the lack of pushback during the whole Wilson period and Wilson beat down on Krause. Did not like a lot of the goaltending soft goals that kind of came up. I did not like just kind of the lack of oomph, I guess. I hate to use oomph as a big word here, but it just kind of felt like that happened. And obviously the inability to capitalize on 7 power plays, including 30 seconds of a 5-on-3, felt really bad for a team struggling with offense, taking on a team who just came off 2 gigantic wins. And gosh, you got to think they partied in Vegas a little bit after Ovi got a hat trick. And man, they just could not put it together.
No,
so
man, it's all salads. It's all salads and stationary bikes for that guy. Yeah.
Anything else you want to point out, Trent?
Buddy, I just convince me that I shouldn't storm it. Convince me. I'm
go to bed. Go to bed. If you watch, I mean, the Capitals will get you if anything. So
I'm just staring at it. I don't have to. You know what? I'm going to post a picture of this thing on Twitter. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Discord too. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really have the heart to middle finger it, but maybe I'll just aggressively point at it. And you guys can pretend it's a different finger. How about that?
There you go. Unfortunately, the Capitals overthrew the Clubbers, and that is kind of the story of the night. This was the Not So Clean Hits post-game show. Be sure to follow us at cleanhitshockey.com for all of our written content. We are kind of compiling some pieces together to do a specialty teams PK and PP report because, man, that has been brutal lately, and we got to talk about it. Otherwise, make sure you're following us on Instagram at Clean Hits Hockey. YouTube at Clean Hits Hockey, Spotify, Apple Podcasts for all your listening pleasures. And if you don't have that Gunther Costco shirt, Black Friday is coming up right around the corner. Maybe we need to do a sale for that. So you can find all of our merch at our link tree. Make sure you're joining the Discord. I was trying to show a friend just how much interaction we have at the game day threads. If you're not in the Discord, hanging out with a bunch of crazy Utah Hockey Club fans, I don't know what you're doing. That link is in our Twitter. Big shout out to SLC Puck. Trent's got the shirt on. Just fantastic content all the time. We got some big fun stuff coming up, so make sure you're following us. I can't say much more than that.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes plugged. I think we're all going to be really having a good time with some of the content coming out on the show. Otherwise, we are going to probably try to chip in another podcast this week. May need to adjust a little bit of the topics after tonight. Maybe Thursday changes it, but depending on when we actually record, there may be a little bit more of that group therapy session. Hopefully you can go to bed tonight without feeling sick. I am Brad. That is Trent coming in from the capital of California, Sacramento. Unfortunately, the Capitals ate tonight.
Don't waste your time.
Otherwise, everybody, adios.
That's my review.
Goodbye.
That's my review of this capital and all capitals. See ya.
See you guys.
We know we running it now. Watch the game change.